छंत शुद्ध वर ज्ञान लोचन लोक सपाप पकिलेश घाट को वंदामि बुद्धं अहमादरेण तम् बुद्धं शरणं गच्छामि धम्मं शरणं गच्छामि संघं शरणं गच्छामि।
तुम लिखे हुए
Homage to the Buddha, the exalted one, the fully enlightened one. Most Venerable Bhikkhu Mahasangha, Bhikkhunis, Venerable Lamas and Nuns, members and office bearers of the Mahabodhi Society of India, life members, distinguished invited guests, Dhamma friends. Great men are rarely born in this world and not in all places. But when and where they appear in person, the place and the environment become sanctified and dance to the tune of incessant flow of joy, delight, and happiness. These sayings are fully true to the life of Anagarika Dharmapala. Though born in Sri Lanka, his great life and noble deeds have evolved glory, not only for Sri Lanka, but also for India and other parts of the world. The name of Anagarika Dharmapala is a name to conjure with in the history of cultural and religious renaissance of India. The Mahabodhi Society is the Dharmapala's great gift to India, and under its auspices, we have been enabled to rediscover the great and hallowed places which the Buddha at one time had purified by the touch of his holy feet. Dharmapala is undoubtedly one of the greatest Buddhist missionaries of all times. We have all linked online this afternoon under the aegis of the Buddha Gaya Center of the Mahabodhi Society to pay our homage to our illustrious founder, Anagarika Dharmapala, on his 157th birth anniversary. We are online since last year due to the ongoing pandemic since March 2020. We now commence this program, international webinar, we presiding over by our president, Mr. Nangze Dorje, the secretary of the Bodh Gaya Temple Management Committee and the president of the Mahabodhi Society of India. We have with us as guest of honor, the most venerable B. Sila Vimala Mahathero, the chief Sanghanayaka of Great Britain and the head monk of the London Buddhist Vihara. Our keynote address is being delivered by the Honorable Sri Jairam Ramesh, author of The Light of Asia, the poem that defined the Buddha. And we have several other guests speakers on the line who will highlight on life and teachings of Anagarika Dharmapala. Commencing this webinar, I would now invite our venerable Mahabhikkhu Sangha assembled here online from all the centers of the Mahabodhi Society of India, headed by Venerable P.C. Valithero, the General Secretary of the Mahabodhi Society of India, to bless this international webinar by reciting the sacred sutras.
Hello. I will request venerable monks to join with us for sacred chanting. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato Dhamma sambuddhassa. Arabhata nikramata Dunatha Machuno Senam Malaharang Vakunte Yo imasming Dhamma Vinaye Appamatto Mihetsati Pahaya Jati Sansarang Sandha Sukho Buddhanam Uppado Kasadhamma Desana Sanghassa Samaggi Samarthanam Tapo
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. I would now invite Venerable P.C. Valithero, the General Secretary of the Mahabodhi Society of India, to please welcome this august gathering online.
Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dhammaya, Namo Sanghaya. Buddha's teaching of love and compassion, Anagarika Dharmapala's devoted efforts to revive Buddhism in the land of its birth, and the Mahabodhi Society that he founded to spread Buddhism throughout the world, combined into a driving force that served a noble cause, the propagation of the Dhamma throughout the world till today. I would like to take this opportunity in welcoming you all in this international webinar organized to celebrate the 157th birth anniversary of the founder, Anagarika Dharmapala from Sri Lanka. If the Anagarika Dharmapala had not come to India, Buddhism would not have been a religion forgotten in the land of its birth. It was the who revived Buddhism and made it a life force in India. It was Anagarika Dharmapala that took Bodh Gaya back to its pristine glory. One cannot think of anybody who has influenced such a section of humanity all over the Buddhist world as the Anagarika Dharmapala has done by introducing and propagating this noble religion, Buddhism. Today, the Buddhist world is able to visit this sacred place and worship mainly because of this great person from Ceylon. The Buddha's Dhamma spread far and wide in India during the time of the Buddha and thereafter. However, in the course of time, due to various reasons, it disappeared from the land of its birth. The sites that were so sacred once and so well known went into disuse and oblivion. The Mahabodhi Society, through its then General Secretary Anagarika Dharmapala, represented Buddhism of the Indian subcontinent to the Parliament of World Religion, Congress held at Chicago, USA in the year 1893. Dharmapala's good friend, Swami Vivekananda, also from Bengal in India, addressed the same Congress. They both had left a great impression upon the minds of the listeners and organizers of the said Congress. Later on, they invited to deliver speeches at many places in America. I wish to sincerely welcome our Honorable President of the Society, Mr. Nanji Dorji, to this webinar and invite him to chair this international webinar. I most heartedly welcome our guest of honor, the most venerable P. Sila Vimala Mahathir, the Chief Sanganaik of Great Britain and the head of the London Buddhist Vihar, in joining us to pay homage to our founder. I very much appreciate his willingness to join us despite the time difference between our countries. I also welcome with great appreciation to our keynote speaker, the Honorable Mr. Jayaram Ramesh, a Rajya Sabha MP and a former Union Minister of India. He is also an author of several books, and the most recent one published during this difficult time, pandemic, titled The Light of Asia, the poem that defined the Buddha. I also wish to welcome all our speakers linked today who will highlight the various aspects of the life and works of our founder world over. I welcome all our trustees, office bearers, honorable vice presidents, members of the governing body, live members, upasakas and upasikas, Dhamma friends who have all linked this afternoon with this international webinar in paying homage to our founder. And I wish that may Anagarika Dharmapala's vision prevail for many years to come. Bhavatu Sabha Mangalam. Thank you.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. I would now like to invite our keynote speaker, the Honorable Mr. Jayaram Ramesh. Mr. Jayaram Ramesh is an Indian economist and a politician, member of the Parliament of the Rajya Sabha, author of several books, and his recent book, The Light of Asia, the poem that defined the Buddha, published during the time of this lockdown in August 2020. And His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, has penned down a foreword in the book, which I would love to quote here today before I invite Mr. Jayaram Ramesh. I understand that the poem, The Light of Asia by Sir Edwin Arnold on the life and teachings of Buddha contributed greatly to the international community's knowledge of Lord Buddha and his philosophy when it was first published in the late 19th century. It is also encouraging to learn that the poem played an important role in India's cultural awakening and its social transformation in the 20th century. The poem had struck a chord in the lives of prominent Indian leaders like Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, and Baba Saheb Ambedkar, including Anagarika Dharmapala. The poem showed that the message of the Buddha is timeless, eternal, and relevant, and sure the readers will find this reflected in Mr. Ramesh's book too, signed on 3rd October 2020. I would now like to invite the Honorable Mr. Jairam Rameshji to please deliver your keynote address on this auspicious occasion.
Thank you very much, dear friends. I am delighted and I am privileged to be part of the 157th birth anniversary celebrations of the great Sri Lankan scholar, monk, the founder of the Mahabodhi Society, the reviver of the Buddhist legacy and heritage in India, the one and only Anagarika Dharmapala. As has been mentioned, my credentials for being here this afternoon with you are because of this book that I have written. This is the cover of the book, The Light of Asia, the poem that defined the Buddha. And of course, the Dalai Lama has written the foreword, parts of which have been read out. This book came out 2-3 months ago, and there are extensive chapters on Anagarika Dharmapala, and the entire movement that was launched in 1886 after Sir Edwin Arnold visited Bodh Gaya, saw the Mahabodhi temple. It was Anagarika Dharmapala, under the inspiration of Sir Edwin Arnold and the Light of Asia, who launched this movement. And finally, as you all know, in May of 1953, the management of the Mahabodhi temple was transferred from the Mahants, the Shivite Mahants, to the management committee, which had half the number of members representing the Hindu community and half representing the Buddhist community, represented, of course, by the Mahabodhi Society. It was a long struggle for almost 70 years. It was a struggle that defined the Mahabodhi Society. And I have recounted in great detail the role that Dharmapala played in this movement. Of course, Dharmapala is more than Bodh Gaya. He was also responsible for the revival and restoration of Sarnath, another very holy place, not only for Buddhists, but for indeed all Indians. After all, today, you all know that the national symbol of India is the 4 lions, lion capital of Sarnath, and the Dharma Chakra adorns the national flag. So Dharmapala, in my view, did more than any single individual to sensitize India to its own legacy. Buddha had been absorbed into the Hindu fold. Buddhism had been eliminated. In fact, it had disappeared, all but disappeared, except in a few pockets in the subcontinent. And it was Dharmapala, supported by many distinguished Bengali gentlemen in Calcutta, who were editors of many influential papers, who carried on this campaign. In fact, one of the greatest supporters of Dharmapala was Rabindranath Tagore for many, many years. And as has been mentioned, Dharmapala and Vivekananda were together in Chicago at the World Parliament of Religions. And while Indians are proud of what Vivekananda said that day, we have forgotten, most of us don't remember, that the other star in Chicago that day was the great Dharmapala himself. In fact, I am struck by the fact that two Sri Lankans have contributed much to the restoration of India's civilizational legacy. One was, of course, Anagarika Dharmapala, and the other one was Vikramasinghe, De Silva Vikramasinghe, who in the late 19th century influenced an Indian student called K.P. Jaiswal, who then wrote a book on ancient Hindu republics of India. And it was because of the influence of this great Sri Lankan epigraphist that Jaiswal wrote this work, which is quoted even today. So it's very, very interesting. The two Sri Lankans, one Sri Lankan contributed much to India rediscovering its Hindu legacy, and another Sri Lankan contributed much to India rediscovering its Buddhist legacy. So all of you are aware, of course, of the life and contributions of Dharmapala. There are many books on him. I have had the occasion to read all these great books by Sarat Amunagama, by Stephen Kemper, and I have had occasion to go through many of the old issues of the Mahabodhi Society Journal. I am not a Buddhist in the religious sense of the term. I am not a scholar of Buddhism in the academic sense of the term. But like every Indian, I am deeply impacted, deeply influenced, deeply fascinated, deeply enamored of the life of the Buddha. And to me, Buddha was the greatest Indian who ever lived. Buddha is not a mythological figure, he's a historical figure. And the reason why I wrote this book, focusing on this epic poem written by Sir Edwin Arnold in 1879, is because the world has to rediscover the humanity of Buddha. The poem focused on the humanity of Buddha. The poem did not focus on the divinity of Buddha. As Dr. Ambedkar said, Buddha was unique because Buddha said, I am not Mokshadata, I am Margadata. Buddha showed the path. Buddha illuminated the road. And he told all of us, be your own light, be your own lamp, do your own experimentation through reason, through science, through compassion, through love, through understanding. What the world requires today is the humanity of Buddha. Divinity has led to wars. Divinity has led to clashes between civilizations. But what we lack is humanity. And it is this humanity that Sir Edwin Arnold brought out in this poem. It was this humanity that Dharmapala focused on through his writings in the Journal of the Mahabodhi Society and his subsequent campaigns for the revival and restoration of Sarnath and other great Buddhist places. So let me once again thank the Mahabodhi Society for giving me this opportunity of paying in my own small and humble way a tribute to a man who reawakened Indians to the legacy of Buddha, to a man who had influenced Gandhi, influenced Tagore, influenced Nehru, influenced Dr. Ambedkar, influenced Dharmanand Kosambi. So many people he had influenced because of his campaigns and because of his movements. I had the great fortune of visiting the Mahabodhi temple a couple of years ago, and I look forward to revisiting the Mahabodhi temple once this pandemic is over. A couple of weeks ago, a leading politician of Bihar called me and said to me, he told me in Hindi and I will translate it in English. He said, Jairam ji, मैंने आपकी किताब पढ़ी, मैं 50 साल से बोध गया जा रहा हूं, मैं कई बार जाता रहा हूं, हर साल 3-4 बार जाता हूं, पर मुझे जानकारी नहीं थी कि धर्मपाल के वजह से आज ये महाबोधि टेम्पल इस स्थिति में है कि वो यूनेस्को वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज साइट के रूप में उभर कर आया है. This was a leading Bihar politician, former minister, who told me that he has been going to Bodh Gaya for the last 50 years, but he never understood, never realized, was not aware of the role that Dharmapala played in the restoration of the Mahabodhi temple, which has led to its emergence to being a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So once again, I thank all of you. I will, of course, continue to be in touch with you. And right in front of me, where I sit, overlooking me, is this very serene, calm, and very comforting image of Buddha. And this you will find in every Indian home. So India may not be Buddhist, but Buddha is in our hearts. Buddha is in our mind. And it is with the spirit of Buddha to pay my homage to this great disciple of the Buddha, Dharmapala, that I accepted your invitation, and I thank you very much.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. I would invite now Mr. Kabir Saxena, the spiritual program coordinator of the Tushita Mahayana Meditation Center, New Delhi, to speak on this auspicious occasion. His topic is Anagarika Dharmapala on Buddhism in the West. Mr. Kabir Saxena.
Thank you so much, Kiranji. Want to excuse my right ear, which has an infection, but I think I can hear you okay. I hope you can hear me okay. It's a great pleasure to be here. I remember being invited before by old senior friend and Bhanteji, Sivali Mahathero, who is here with us. I'm so happy that he's here. When I was a monk, we spent some time touring in Uttar Pradesh, and I remember how we had to put up with certain difficulties and criticism from some of the laity in UP at that time. I don't know if Bhanteji remembers. Anyway, it's wonderful to be here with you all, with Kiranji, Kailashji, with Nanse Dorjela. I always feel I have one foot in Bodh Gaya and one foot in Delhi. So I have a few things to say. I'm not a scholar, as you know, but having had that connection with Bodh Gaya since 1981 and being interested and continuing to be interested in Buddhism and how it may benefit people, Buddhist and non-Buddhist, as the honorable member just said, Buddhism is something that's very much in the hearts of many Indian people. So we don't have to be card-carrying Buddhists to appreciate. I just want to check with our esteemed coordinator, Kiranji, do I have 12 or 13 minutes more? Or are you confining me to 10 minutes?
Yeah, 10 minutes, okay.
Yeah, not 15 as you promised originally. Okay. Anyway, I will be brief. It's hard, of course, to be concise about such a great figure. Just in case we need reminding, just to remind ourselves of what he did achieve. He managed to, out of the ashes, you could say, of colonialism and a Christianity which had not been so useful in his eyes for Sri Lanka, he managed to revive Buddhism in Sri Lanka and helped with the independence movement there. He not only did that, but he helped revive Buddhism worldwide, I would say. We all know about his visit to Bodh Gaya in 1891 and the very poignant photograph of him at the Vajrasan, lamenting the state of Bodh Gaya at that time. So the revival of Buddhism and also then representing Buddhism at the Chicago World Congress of Religions in 1893. So all of these things were part of his mission. But I want to focus a little bit on his contact with the West. I'm afraid I haven't done much scholarly reading on this behalf. And those of you who are, who have qualities of detective Sherlock Holmes, you'll see that most of what I'm about to say is taken from Google Swami. But actually, there's some very good material there. And I think if we use our intelligence and imagination, we can begin to get an idea of what Anagarika Dharmapala had to go through. So he's a global Buddhist missionary. He's a pioneer in the revival of Buddhism. And he preached the Dharma in 3 continents like nobody had done before him, in Asia, North America, and in Europe. So he also, it seems, inspired a movement of Indian Dalits early on, including Tamils, to embrace Buddhism. Half a century before Dr. Ambedkar. But I need to investigate this further. I cannot claim that this is absolutely true, but this is what I have read. Now, let's look at him in context. None of us can remember, I suppose, we're not old enough to remember being under a colonial power or under the, you could say, the heel of a religion that we do not respect. But that was the case with Anagarika Dharmapala. As he grew up in Sri Lanka in the last quarter of the 19th century, he was very, very upset by what he saw at that time. He saw the hypocrisy, what he saw as the hypocrisy of Christianity that was being practiced, the ruthlessness of some of it, how the actions of its members went against the dictates of the Gospels and of Jesus Christ. And so there was that part of him which was really quite upset at what was going on. And so he was deeply inspired and moved to revive Buddhism and to protest against what he saw as an unjust occupation of not only his country, but of the minds of the people by an alien religion. Now, it's ironic that what helped him in the end so much in the revival of Buddhism, and this happened in India too, was actually the help from Western people. So such as the early theosophists, such as Olcott, Colonel Olcott, and Madame Blavatsky. And there's a parallel there when we see how it's due to the